5 minutes late. He didn't run. He could have, but he didn't. He thought he still had time. Just a few minutes. Nothing serious. Nothing worth worrying about. It wasn't a dramatic mistake. No one noticed. It was the kind of mistake that only exists for the person who makes it. At the time, it didn't feel like a decision. When he arrived, the door was already closed. They told him it wasn't a problem, and at the time, he believed it. It wasn't the mistake that changed his life. It was the moment it became irreversible. Nothing happens. Nothing was said. He didn't say anything. He could have, but he didn't. The moment passed, not because it was difficult, not because it was dangerous, but because it didn't seem necessary. It wasn't fear. It wasn't doubt. He just thought it wasn't the right moment. Nothing asked him to choose. At the time, silence felt neutral. Later, he tried to remember when the silence started to matter. There was no clear moment, no sentence he could point to. Only the feeling that something had already been decided without him noticing. Nothing happens. No rush. He didn't hurry. There was no reason to. Nothing was urgent. Nothing was calling him forward. He stayed where he was, watching time move ahead of him. He thought slowing down was harmless, almost polite. There was time, plenty of it. Nothing suggested he should move faster. At the time, slowing down felt harmless. By the time he arrived, everything had already moved on. They told him it wasn't a problem. And at the time, he believed them. It wasn't the delay that changed his life. It was the moment it could no longer be undone. Nothing happens. Still waiting. He stayed where he was, not because he was told to, not because he had to. Waiting felt like the safest option, As long as nothing changed, nothing could go wrong. There was no signal, no clear moment to move. Nothing asked him to decide. Nothing asked him to move. At the time, waiting felt reasonable. Later, he realized that waiting had been a choice, not a dramatic one, just one that quietly closed every other door. There was no moment where waiting stopped being a choice. Nothing happens. No reply. He read the message more than once. He thought about answering, then decided he would later. There was no hurry. Nothing forced him to stay silent. There was no risk in waiting. Nothing required an answer yet. At the time, not replying felt harmless. Days passed, then weeks. When he finally tried to answer, there was nothing left to respond to. By the time he answered, the silence had already done its work. Nothing happens. Just a moment. He paused, only for a moment. Enough to look back, enough to hesitate. It didn't feel like stopping, just slowing down. Nothing was lost yet. Nothing was decided. Nothing felt urgent enough. At the time, pausing felt insignificant. Later, he understood that the pause had been the moment. Everything else had simply followed. The moment passed quietly. That was what made it final. Nothing happens. Not today. He planned to do it, just not that day. There was time. Another moment would come. It didn't feel like giving up, just postponing. There was no pressure, no consequence he could see. Nothing demanded action, waiting for later felt safe. The moment never came back in the same form. When he noticed, it was already too late to do it the way he had imagined. Later never arrived the way he had imagined. Nothing happens